To what the Nira Radia tapes tell us about Vir Sanghvi and Barkha Dutt. You've listened to the conversations. In your assessment, as a former icon of Indian journalism, do you believe that they were only acting as go-betweens and carrying messages, or were they in fact behaving like lobbyists?
Well, of course, they are saying we never delivered the messages. And I find that quite incredible, because an astute and shrewd person like Nira Radia would at once know whether her messages are being delivered or not. She would meet the principal next day and know that. Second, you have to look at the tone of what is being said. You see, the tone is not a tone of a journalist inquiring, getting information. There is another tape of Nira Radia with Navika Kumar of Times Now. There it is a journalist getting information, or Nira Radia giving information which she wants carried.
And what's the tone on the Vir Barkha tapes?
No, of great familiarity and of the assurance that yes, we will convey this message to the Congress party, and it's a message not about policies and so on. It's a message about how Raja should get telecom and Maran should not get anything related.
You've said 2-3 very important things which I want to get you to confirm. First, you're saying you don't accept their defense that they were only stringing Nira Radia along. You believe that the tone of the conversation, as well as the fact that Nira would have double-checked, both suggest that they did deliver the messages they were asked to deliver.
I think so. And then there is the third fact, that there is a confirmation of the messages having been delivered by cross-references in other conversations of Ms. Nira Radia with other people.
So their defense, in your eyes, simply doesn't hold water?
Not really. And it's, I think it's better to just say, yes, I did this, rather than...
Better to own up than deny it?
In the circumstances, because denial just doesn't sound plausible, listening to the tapes.
The second key question: was it appropriate for journalists to carry messages asking for particular individuals to be made ministers or not made ministers, or for particular portfolios for specific individuals? Is that an appropriate message for journalists to carry?
Well, you know, yes and no. We are citizens also. Let us take an example like defense. If I feel that or let's take a matter that's already taken place. We have Naxalite things going on, and I feel that Mr. Shivraj Patil is not doing the proper job, and I feel that Mr. X, or let's say Mr. Chidambaram, would do a perfectly good job, a better job than that. Well, if I convey that opinion to the Prime Minister, not as a journalist but as a citizen, it is one thing. But if I am trying to get a particular person a lucrative portfolio, I don't think I am doing it in the case of Raja, that it is because he is going to carry forward India's telecom revolution.
So in the case of Raja,
either
it was inappropriate.
Inappropriate, or a great misjudgment about Mr. Raja and his abilities to carry forward the telecom revolution.
A third question: in carrying these messages, clearly Vir and Barkha were using an access and an influence which they get because of their profession or because of their employers. Was this correct use of that access, or was it misuse of that access?
In this particular case, I certainly feel that it was, because no higher purpose is revealed in the tapes, you see.
So it was misuse?
I would think so.
Now, Vir and Barkha say that they were looking for a scoop in terms of who would become a minister or what portfolios he or she would get. But there are others who point out that in fact both of them have deliberately not looked at and not picked up a much bigger scoop, that the DMK was using corporate lobbyists to lobby Congress for a telecom portfolio, and that the corporate lobbyist was herself involved in telecom relations with Ratan Tata, possibly Mukesh Ambani. That this was a much bigger story. DMK uses corporate lobbyists to lobby for telecom, but they didn't even pick it up, and probably deliberately. Do you agree with that criticism, that viewpoint?
No, actually it is quite obvious that Ms. Radia was in telecom policy making, allocation of licenses and so on. And well-informed journalists like Barkha and Vir would also have known that. They seem to be quite intimate and friendly with her.
Should they have revealed this to the world? Because some people say this was a bigger story than trying to find out who was going to become a minister.
But that I don't know. If they are taking up the subject of telecom, yes, they would have revealed the story. But otherwise, the fact is the conversations are confined to the question of who should get which portfolio, and the tone certainly does not suggest that they are trying to scoop some information out of a source.
What about something else? The tapes suggest that Vir was prepared to include in his Hindustan Times column counterpoint an angle or a viewpoint that Nira Radia was giving him. The tapes also suggest that he was prepared to do scripted interviews. What do you make of that?
But is it, firstly, we'll have to, on that we'd have to take Vir's word also, because he says that actually that was my own point of view. If Nira Radia also has the same point of view, it's one thing. On the
do you accept such a coincidence is likely, or do you think it's implausible? What do you say on that?
But I would have to get into Vir's mind and history to know that. I would not know.
So you have your doubts?
Well, I would not, I could have a doubt or doubt either way. I could also accept his explanation on that count.
Are Vir and Barkha, who are themselves also two icons of journalism, they're extremely highly regarded, they have a great track record, but are they today damaged because of these revelations?
You see, we should be discriminating. If a friend is in legal trouble and he asks me for help on law, well, I'd say, okay, fine, your lawyers have done a job, I'll look it over. No problem in that. But I would not then try to conceal it and would not then give some artificial thing. No, I was trying to increase my knowledge of law by going through the particular
So the concealment is the real problem.
The explanations that have been offered don't stand up.
It would have been better rather than explain and conceal if they had made a clean breast of it and admitted.
Yes, suppose somebody says that, yes, I am close to so-and-so, no problem. But then the onus then falls on the reader or the listener to keep those earphones in
now,
before listening to them next time.
Vir and Barkha are not just individuals. One is a columnist and an advisory editorial director of the Hindustan Times. The other is the group editor of NDTV. Has this damaged the institutions they work for?
I think the overall record of many institutions like this is just further confirmed by such revelations. This is not the first time.
This has corroborated the doubts that anyway exist in people's minds about all sorts of institutions.
And about the media in general. The Mitrokhin archives said how Soviet Union was able to plant stories suppressed by the Indian media. This privatetreaties.com, 2-3 journalists reveal it, completely suppressed by the Indian media. Paid news, the press council asks for a report, and then the press council, the great bastion of freedom, suppresses that particular report.
This is one more.
This is one more.
So this is underlined and corroborated the concerns people have with the media.
Media, yes. And the media should wake up to that.
Let's then take a break. I want to come back and ask you about how the media has responded to these revelations, and also how do we ensure that journalists hereafter do not behave inappropriately. We'll be back in a moment's time. Welcome back to Devil's Advocate and an interview with Arun Shourie. Mr. Shourie, let's come to how the media has responded to these revelations about senior journalists. Many people say that the media goes hammer and tong to expose politicians, bureaucrats, industrialists, but in this instance, with one or two exceptions, the media has kept almost completely silent.
Yes, it has a well-proven capacity to look the other way.
Is this double standards?
Of course there are double standards, and they are injurious to the media itself. One of the remedies must be that the media talks about itself with the same objectivity and openness as it talks about other institutions, because the media is a very precious institution in democracy.
So when major newspapers or major television channels keep completely silent and don't mention this, don't discuss it, don't analyze it, they're injuring the media as a whole.
Yes, as much as the corporates who then try to undermine institutions. We have to all realize that, you see, institutions, including the media, are the banks of a river. They enable the river of democracy to flow. When we erode this, when we shut our eyes to what is happening, either in other institutions or in our own institution, we are eroding the banks and the river will not flow.
In this instance, the media, which is the bank, is crumbling, and the river as a result is threatening to flood.
Flood, indeed it will. And
how much damage then has this done to the way in which the media is perceived? You ended part one by saying that there were already serious question marks about the media. Have those question marks grown bigger?
Oh yes, no doubt about that. No doubt about that. I mean, I have been just now in the last 3 days in 2 cities, and everybody talks about the media. Aapne suna? Did you realize? Did you know this is happening? Every place. Investors, financial officers, CFOs, chief financial officers, everyone. So I would think that one of the things that somebody should do is to please listen to the tapes. Somebody should, some enterprising company should put CDs out of these tapes. It's a very good glimpse into how policy is made, how the media functions.
It's eye-opening.
It's eye-opening, and thereby everybody will then should become very skeptical about what they hear and what they read.
Now, my last question. What steps does the media as a whole need to take to ensure that journalists behave appropriately and don't allow themselves to get caught in such conflicts of situation?
I think the main thing is sunlight is the best disinfectant. So as we talk about others freely and openly, with well-documented exposes, so must we talk about the media. That is the central remedy, and I think the media is short-sighted by not talking, for instance, about the tapes and what implications these have. You see, these formal rules of ethics are not going to work. I remember 10 years ago the Editors Guild was drafting all these ethical conduct rules. They got nowhere. It is exposure in the public. That is our faith about remedying other institutions. That should be our faith about our own.
So just as politicians are scared of the media, that the media will expose their wrongdoings, so too journalists should be wary that their own peers in their own profession will expose them if they commit some fault.
Yes.
We are the best check of ourselves.
Absolutely. And we should not cede that responsibility to anybody else, because then all sorts of other problems arise.
So it's not just in our own interest, but to protect our independence, we must be the regulating authority of our own profession.
And not by setting up yet another council, but by freelance writing about each other.
Arun Shourie, a pleasure talking to you.